The fever had stolen 3 weeks of Beatrice Gardner's life, and when she finally opened her eyes with a clear mind, she discovered it had taken everything else too. Her younger sister Violet stood at the foot of the bed, wearing their mother's pearl necklace and a dress Beatrice had never seen before, expensive silk that caught the autumn light streaming through the window. Behind her, Thomas Whitmore shifted uncomfortably, his hand resting on Violet's shoulder in a way that made Beatrice's stomach turn, even before the words left her sister's painted lips. "Beatrice, you are awake," Violet said, her voice carrying none of the relief one might expect. "We have been so worried. The doctor said the scarlet fever nearly took you." Beatrice tried to sit up, her body weak from weeks of illness. The room spun slightly and she gripped the quilt her grandmother had made years ago. "Thomas," her voice came out hoarse, unfamiliar. "What day is it?" Thomas stepped forward, and she noticed he was not looking at her the way he used to, not with the warmth and devotion that had convinced her to accept his proposal last spring. "It is October 20th, Beatrice. You have been ill since the end of September." "The wedding," Beatrice whispered, remembering. Their wedding had been planned for October 5th, a date they had chosen because the aspens would be golden in the mountains surrounding Leadville, Colorado. "Did you postpone it?" The silence that followed felt like a physical weight pressing down on her chest. Violet moved closer, her hand still clasped in Thomas's, and Beatrice saw the gold band on her sister's finger before the words could reach her ears. "We could not wait, Beatrice," Violet said softly, though her eyes held no real remorse. "The doctor said you might not recover. Thomas had already put a deposit on the church and his business partner was only in town until the 10th. It made sense, do not you see? I stepped in to help. We thought you would understand." The room tilted again, but this time it had nothing to do with fever. Beatrice stared at the ring, at their joined hands, at the way Thomas looked everywhere except at her face. "You married my fiancé while I was dying." "You were not dying," Thomas said quickly, finally meeting her eyes. "At least, not by the time we made the decision. The doctor said you had turned a corner, and Violet is right about the practical considerations. My partnership with Harold Sutton depended on certain social standings. A married man commands more respect in business." Beatrice felt something crack inside her chest, something that had nothing to do with her recovering lungs. "Get out." "Now, Beatrice, do not be dramatic," Violet began, but Beatrice found strength she did not know she possessed. "Get out of my room. Both of you." Her voice broke on the last word, but she did not care. She wanted them gone, wanted to stop looking at the evidence of their betrayal, wanted to pretend for just a moment longer that she had imagined it all in fever dreams. Thomas pulled Violet toward the door, murmuring something about giving Beatrice time to adjust. As if this was something to adjust to, as if they had rearranged furniture instead of demolishing her entire future. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded like finality. Beatrice lay back against her pillows and did not cry. She felt too empty for tears, hollowed out by illness and treachery both. Through the window, she could see the peaks of the Mosquito Range dusted with early snow, beautiful and indifferent to human suffering. Leadville sprawled below them at over 10,000 feet elevation, a mining town that had exploded from nothing into Colorado's second-largest city in just a few years. Fortunes were made and lost here daily in the silver mines. Apparently, the same was true of love. A knock at the door made her tense, but the voice that followed was different. "Miss Gardner, it is Catherine. I have brought you some broth." Catherine O'Brien had been their housekeeper since Beatrice's father struck it rich in the Little Pittsburgh mine 5 years ago. She was a practical Irish woman in her 50s who had always treated both Gardner sisters with fair but firm kindness. "Come in," Beatrice said, grateful for a face that held actual sympathy. Catherine entered with a tray, her expression troubled. She set it on the bedside table and helped Beatrice sit up, propping pillows behind her back. "I am sorry, child. It is a terrible thing they have done." "You knew?" Beatrice asked, accepting the cup of warm broth Catherine offered. "Not until after. I was tending to you around the clock those first 2 weeks. When the fever finally broke and I came down to rest, they had already gone to the church." Catherine's mouth pressed into a thin line. "Your father was too drunk to notice what was happening, and your stepmother never cared for you the way she dotes on Violet. I wanted to wake you and tell you, but the doctor said the shock might cause a relapse." Beatrice sipped the broth slowly, letting the warmth settle in her stomach. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Heal," Catherine said firmly. "Get your strength back. The rest will sort itself out or it will not, but you cannot face any of it like this." Over the next 2 weeks, Beatrice focused on recovery with grim determination. She ate everything Catherine brought her, forcing down food even when she had no appetite. She walked the length of her room, then the hallway, then the stairs, rebuilding strength in muscles that had wasted during her illness. She avoided Violet and Thomas, who had taken up residence in the guest wing of the house. Apparently, Thomas's own home was still being furnished, another detail he had failed to mention about why the wedding date was so inflexible. Her father, Cornelius Gardner, stopped by her room once during those weeks. He smelled of whiskey and cigars, his face ruddy with broken blood vessels from years of drinking. "You are looking better, Beatrice." "Thank you, Father." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "Your sister tells me you are upset about the marriage." Beatrice set down the book she had been attempting to read. "She stole my fiancé while I was fighting for my life. Yes, I am upset." Now, stole is a harsh word. Cornelius moved to the window, looking out at his empire, the wealth he had clawed from the mountains through luck and ruthlessness. Thomas made a practical decision. Violet was available and willing. You were not. In business, in life, you cannot let opportunities pass by. "I am your daughter, not a business opportunity that expired." He turned to face her, and for a moment she saw something almost like regret in his bloodshot eyes. "You are like your mother was, too tender for this world. She never understood that survival means making hard choices." His first wife, Beatrice's mother, had died when Beatrice was 12, worn down by the hardships of following a prospector through mining camps for years before his luck finally turned. "Violet is like me. She sees what she wants and takes it. That is how you succeed out here." "Then I hope I never succeed the way she has," Beatrice said quietly. Her father studied her for a long moment, then shrugged. "I have settled a sum on you, enough that you need not worry about money. Find yourself another husband if you want one. God knows there are enough single men in this town." He left without waiting for a response, and Beatrice understood that this was the extent of the protection or comfort she could expect from him. By early November, she was well enough to leave the house. She ventured into Leadville's crowded streets wrapped in a heavy wool coat, still thinner than she had been before the illness but steady on her feet. The town roared with life despite the cold, with ore wagons rumbling down Harrison Avenue and miners crowding into the countless saloons even in midday. The smell of coal smoke hung in the thin mountain air, and somewhere a piano played off-key. Beatrice walked without direction, needing to be away from the house and its suffocating memories. She passed the Tabor Opera House, still under construction and already famous though it had not opened yet. She passed stores selling everything from mining equipment to French champagne, brothels shoulder to shoulder with churches, the whole chaotic sprawl of a town where people came to reinvent themselves or die trying. She did not realize where she was going until she found herself outside the church where she should have been married. It was a simple building by city standards but grand for a mining town, with real stained glass in the windows that someone had hauled up from Denver. She stood across the street, staring at the doors, and wondered if Violet had worn the wedding dress they had chosen together, the one with Belgian lace that had cost more than most miners made in a month. You planning on going in, or are you just going to block the walkway all afternoon? Beatrice startled and turned to find a man watching her from the doorway of the building next to the church. He was tall and lean, somewhere in his late 20s, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of the summer sky she could barely remember. He wore working clothes, denim pants and a simple cotton shirt despite the cold, with a leather vest that had seen better years. A cowboy, she thought, though that word covered a multitude of professions in towns like this. "I apologize," she said, stepping aside though no one else was trying to pass. "I was just thinking. Thinking is fine. Freezing to death while thinking is foolish." He moved into the street, and she noticed he walked with a slight limp favoring his left leg. "You look like you are one cold wind away from blowing over. When did you last eat?" "That is none of your concern, Mr. Nathaniel. Samuel Nathaniel, but most people call me Sam." He studied her face with an intensity that should have been rude but somehow was not. "You are Beatrice Gardner. I have seen you before, back in the summer at the Founders' Day celebration. You were with Thomas Whitmore." Of course he knew. Everyone in Leadville probably knew the story by now. Small fortunes and big scandals were the currency of gossip in mining towns. "Yes, well, circumstances have changed since then. I heard." Sam glanced at the church, then back at her. "For what it is worth, Whitmore is a fool and your sister is worse." The blunt assessment surprised her into something almost like a laugh. "You do not mince words. Life is too short, and I am too old for dancing around the truth." He gestured down the street. "There is a cafe 2 blocks down that makes decent stew. You should eat something before you collapse and give this town something else to gossip about." Beatrice should have refused. She did not know this man, and proper ladies did not accept invitations from strange cowboys on street corners. But proper ladies also did not get abandoned by their fiancés for their younger sisters, and she was so desperately tired of being alone with her thoughts. All right. The cafe was warm and crowded, smelling of coffee and beef and fresh bread. Sam found them a table near the back and ordered without asking what she wanted, which should have annoyed her but instead felt like a relief. She did not want to make decisions, even small ones. "How long have you been in Leadville?" she asked when the food arrived, genuine curiosity overcoming her reserve. 3 years, give or take. I came for the mining work like everyone else, but I ended up working at the stockyards mostly. Somebody has to manage the cattle and horses that keep this town fed." He ate efficiently, without the refined manners Thomas had always displayed. "Before that I was down in Texas working ranches. Before that, Missouri, where I grew up. The usual story." "Why did you leave the ranches?" Something flickered across his face, old pain worn smooth by time. "War caught up with me, even though it had been over for years. I lost my younger brother in an ambush by former Confederate raiders who could not let things be. After that, Missouri did not feel like home anymore. I needed to go somewhere that was not haunted by memory." "Did you find it?" Beatrice asked softly. "Some days." Sam looked at her directly. "Now let me ask you something. What are you going to do about what? About everything. About living in that house with them. About your life." Beatrice pushed food around her plate. "I do not know. My father gave me money, but respectable women do not simply set up households alone. I have no other family to go to." My mother's sister lives in Pennsylvania, but we have not spoken in years. So you will stay and watch them be happy in front of you every day. Sam's voice was not unkind, but it was challenging. That seems like a particular form of torture. What would you have me do? The question came out sharper than she intended. I cannot exactly become a cattle hand or a prospector. The options for women are somewhat limited, in case you had not noticed. Options are only limited if you accept other people's definitions of what is possible. Sam finished his coffee and leaned back in his chair. I am not saying I have answers for you. I am just suggesting that maybe sitting around in that house waiting for your life to restart is not the only path. They talked until the cafe began to empty for the dinner rush, and Beatrice realized with surprise that hours had passed. Sam had a way of listening that made her want to talk, and a dry humor that surprised laughs out of her when she had thought she might never laugh again. He told her stories about cattle drives and cowboy foolishness, about the time a spooked horse had kicked him and broken his leg in 2 places, leaving him with the limp and a healthy respect for proper animal handling. She told him about growing up in mining camps, about her mother's quiet strength, about the way Violet had always wanted everything Beatrice had from the time they were children. Your father remarried when? Sam asked. A year after my mother died. Clara was younger, prettier, eager to be a wealthy man's wife. She brought Violet from her first marriage. Beatrice traced patterns in the condensation on her water glass. I tried to be a good sister. I shared everything, my room, my books, my friends. I thought we would be truly close someday. Some people see generosity as weakness, Sam said, an invitation to take more. When he finally walked her back toward her house as the sun set behind the mountains, Beatrice felt more solid than she had since waking from her fever. At the corner before her street, she stopped. Thank you for this afternoon. Nothing to thank me for. I enjoyed the company. Sam tipped his hat. If you want to talk again, I am usually at the stockyards during the day. It is down on the west side of town, past the smelters. I am not sure it would be appropriate for me to visit you at work. Beatrice, he said, and it was the first time he had used her given name. Appropriate died when they stole your life. Do what you want, not what they tell you to do. She watched him walk away, limping slightly, hands in his pockets against the cold. Then she turned toward home and the confrontation she knew was waiting. Violet was in the parlor when Beatrice entered, draped across the settee in a silk dressing gown that probably cost more than Catherine made in 6 months. Where have you been? It is nearly dark. Out, Beatrice said, removing her coat. Out where? Catherine said you left hours ago. People will talk. Let them talk. They are already talking, are they not? Beatrice moved toward the stairs, wanting only to reach her room. You are making this harder than it needs to be, Violet said, sitting up. If you would just accept the situation, we could all move forward. Thomas and I want to be gracious about this. Beatrice stopped and turned slowly. Gracious? You want to be gracious? Do not take that tone with me. None of this would have happened if you had not gotten sick. Thomas needed a wife and you were not available. I simply stepped into a role that needed filling. The casual cruelty of it took Beatrice's breath. You are my sister. Half-sister, Violet corrected, and there it was, the division she had always maintained beneath her smiles. We are not truly family, not really. Your father married my mother, that is all, and you have always had everything handed to you, being his real daughter. For once I saw something I wanted and I took it. Did Thomas want to be taken? Or did you convince him somehow? Violet's smile turned sharp. Thomas is a practical man. I helped him see that I could offer him everything you could, with the added benefit of being healthy and present. Do not blame me because I was more persuasive. Beatrice climbed the stairs without responding, because there was nothing to say. Her sister had shown her true face, and there was no unseen truth, no hidden regret or guilt. Violet was simply that, selfish, opportunistic, and utterly remorseless. That night, Beatrice lay awake planning. Sam was right. She could not stay in this house and maintain any sense of dignity or peace. She could not watch them play at happy marriage while her own heart was still raw. But where could she go? What could she do? The questions circled until exhaustion finally pulled her under. She began visiting Sam at the stockyards, propriety be damned. The first time she walked into the chaos of cattle and horses and shouting men, Sam looked up from the corral where he was working with a skittish mare and grinned. "Wondered if you would show." "I decided I did not care what people thought," Beatrice said, climbing onto the fence rail to watch him work. "Good. That is the first step to freedom." She came back the next day and the day after that. Sam taught her about horses, how to read their moods and movements. He introduced her to the other men who worked the yards, and they were rough and sometimes crude, but treated her with an easy respect. Once they understood she was Sam's friend. She learned to ignore the smell and the noise, found herself actually enjoying the raw honesty of this place where everything was exactly what it appeared to be. "You have a good hand with them," Sam said one afternoon, watching her stroke the nose of a paint horse that had been half wild when it arrived a week ago. "Natural instinct. My mother kept horses before my father struck it rich. I grew up around them, though it has been years." Beatrice smiled as the paint nuzzled her palm, looking for treats. "I had forgotten how peaceful they can be. Horses do not lie or scheme. They react honestly to how you treat them. There is comfort in that." Sam leaned against the rail beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him in the cold air. "You seem better than when I met you." "I am. Being here helps. Having someone to talk to helps." She glanced at him. "You have been kind to me when you had no reason to be." "Maybe I like your company," Sam said simply. "Maybe I think you deserve better than what you got dealt." The words hung between them, heavier with meaning than their surface suggested. Beatrice felt her pulse quicken and told herself it was just gratitude, just relief at having a friend. But she was beginning to suspect it was more than that, and the realization was both terrifying and exhilarating. Winter set into Leadville with brutal force. By December, snow lay 4 feet deep in places, and the temperature dropped so low that water froze solid in indoor basins overnight. The town slowed but did not stop. Miners and merchants too stubborn or too desperate to let weather interfere with the pursuit of wealth. Beatrice continued her visits to the stockyards, wrapped in every piece of warm clothing she owned, and Sam always had coffee waiting, somehow keeping it hot in a battered pot near the small stove in the office shack. "You are going to freeze to death coming out here," he told her one particularly brutal afternoon when the wind cut like knives. "So let me stay warm inside," Beatrice said, settling onto the bench near the stove and wrapping her hands around the coffee cup he offered. Sam closed the door behind her, shutting out the worst of the wind. In the small space, she was intensely aware of him, of the breadth of his shoulders and the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. They had been dancing around something for weeks now, an attraction neither had named but both clearly felt. "Beatrice," he said carefully, "I need to know something." "What? Are you here because you enjoy my company or because you are running from them?" The directness startled her into honesty. "Both, maybe, at first, but now." She met his eyes. "Now I come because when I am with you I feel like myself again, like I am more than what they tried to turn me into." Sam moved closer, kneeling in front of the bench so they were at eye level. "I am not a wealthy man. I do not have a mansion or a mine or social standing. I am just a cowboy who is good with animals and decent with people, but I am honest, and I do not play games with hearts." "I know," Beatrice whispered. "I have wanted to kiss you for weeks," Sam continued, his voice rough. "But not if you are just looking for revenge against Thomas, not if I am just a tool to hurt them with." "You are not," Beatrice said, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. Somewhere between the first conversation and now, Sam Nathaniel had become essential to her, someone she thought about constantly, someone who made her feel valued and seen in ways Thomas never had. "You are the first real thing that has happened to me in a very long time." He kissed her then, gentle and questioning, and she kissed him back with all the feelings she had been suppressing. His hands cupped her face like she was precious, and she felt tears slip down her cheeks though she was not sad. When they finally pulled apart, Sam brushed the tears away with his thumbs. "I am falling in love with you," he said. "I probably have been since the day I saw you staring at that church like it held all your broken dreams. I want to help you build new dreams if you will let me." "I am falling in love with you too," Beatrice admitted. "It terrifies me." "Good. The best things are usually terrifying." Sam kissed her again, deeper this time, and Beatrice let herself fall into it, into him, into the possibility of a future she had not imagined existed. They courted through the brutal winter, stealing moments in the stockyard office and taking walks on days when the weather permitted. Sam never tried to hide their growing attachment, and Beatrice found she did not want to either. Word reached her family inevitably. Thomas confronted her in the hallway of the house one evening in late January. "I heard you have been spending time with Samuel Nathaniel." "Yes," Beatrice said, not bothering to deny it. "He is a nobody, Beatrice, a common laborer. He is a good man, more than I can say for you." She tried to move past him, but Thomas caught her arm. "I made a mistake," he said urgently. "I see that now. Violet is not you. She is demanding and shallow, and I realize I gave up something valuable for something merely pretty." Beatrice pulled her arm free. "You realize this now. After you married my sister while I fought scarlet fever, after you spent months in her bed, you suddenly realize you made a mistake. I was foolish, pressured. She was very convincing, and you were so sick. I panicked." Thomas reached for her again, but she stepped back. "It is not too late. I could get the marriage annulled. There are grounds. We could start over." The audacity took her breath away. "You think I would take you back? You loved me once." "I loved who I thought you were. That man never existed." Beatrice shook her head. "Even if you could undo your marriage, even if Violet disappeared tomorrow, I would not take you back. You showed me who you really are, Thomas. Someone who views people as interchangeable assets. Someone who puts his own convenience above everything else. I deserve better than that." "Better like a stockyard cowboy." Thomas's voice turned bitter. "You think he loves you. He probably just wants access to your father's money." "Sam does not care about my father's money. He cares about me, the person, not the assets I represent." Beatrice moved around Thomas toward her room. "Leave me alone. Go back to your wife. You made your choice. Live with it." Violet was worse than Thomas, spiteful and vindictive once she realized Beatrice was not going to wither away in tragic heartbreak. She made cutting remarks at meals and spread rumors through her social circle about Beatrice's inappropriate relationship with a common worker. She convinced their father to reduce the allowance he had settled on Beatrice, arguing that if Beatrice was going to embarrass the family, she should not do it with Gardner money. "Let them talk," Sam said when Beatrice told him about Violet's machinations. "In a year, nobody will remember or care. This town is too busy making and losing fortunes to hold grudges about romance." "My allowance might stop entirely," Beatrice warned. "Father is already drinking more, and Violet has his ear. If she pushes hard enough, he might cut me off completely. Then we will figure it out together." Sam took her hands, his grip warm and steady. "I make enough for two if we are careful. It will not be fancy, but it will be honest. You would take me on with nothing. Beatrice, I would take you on if you came to me with debts and enemies. The money does not matter." He pulled her close, and she rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Marry me, not because you are running from them, but because you want to run towards something with me." She pulled back to look at him. "Are you proposing?" "I am not a romantic man, and I do not have a fancy ring to offer you right now. But yes, I am proposing." Sam's blue eyes were earnest and clear. "I love you. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and show you every day that you are valued and cherished. Marry me." "Yes," Beatrice said, and felt the last piece of her broken heart slot back into place, healed into something stronger than before. "Yes, I will marry you." They married in March of 1881 in the same church where Thomas and Violet had stolen Beatrice's first wedding. Sam insisted on it despite Beatrice's hesitation. "Take it back," he said. "Make it ours instead of a monument to what they did to you." The ceremony was simple. Catherine stood as Beatrice's witness, crying happy tears throughout. One of Sam's friends from the stockyard stood for him. A handful of other people attended, neighbors and co-workers who had no connection to the Gardner social circle. Beatrice wore a simple blue dress, not a wedding gown, and carried wildflowers Catherine had somehow found despite the snow still thick on the ground. Her family did not attend. Her father had made his disappointment clear, though he stopped short of cutting her off entirely. Violet had laughed when she heard about the engagement and said it would be satisfying to watch Beatrice struggle in poverty. Thomas had not said anything at all. Beatrice did not care. As she stood next to Sam and promised to love him in sickness and health, in wealth and poverty, she meant every word with a fervor she had never felt with Thomas. This was real. This was choosing her own life instead of accepting what others dictated. They moved into a small house on the edge of town, 2 rooms and a kitchen with a stove that worked most of the time. Sam had saved enough for basic furniture, and Beatrice contributed what remained of her allowance. It was nothing like the mansion she had grown up in, but she loved it immediately because it was theirs. "No ghosts here," Sam said, carrying her over the threshold with exaggerated ceremony that made her laugh. "Just us and whatever we build together." Their first year of marriage was not easy. Sam's work at the stockyards was hard and sometimes dangerous, and his leg bothered him more in cold weather. Beatrice took in sewing and mending to help with expenses, discovering she had a talent for alterations that put extra money in their pockets. They ate simple meals and could not afford luxuries, but they were happy in a way Beatrice had never imagined possible. She occasionally saw Violet and Thomas in town. The first few times were awkward, but Beatrice found that, with Sam beside her, the encounters lost their power to hurt. Violet looked perpetually dissatisfied despite her fine clothes and jewelry. Thomas looked tired and older than his years. Beatrice felt nothing for them except a distant pity. "You ever regret it?" Sam asked one night as they lay in bed, the quilt pulled high against the cold. Giving up the comfort, the status, all of it, Beatrice turned to face him in the darkness. "Never, not once. What I had before was not real. This is real." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. I love you too." By the summer of 1882, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. Sam was ecstatic and terrified in equal measure. "I do not know the first thing about babies," he confessed. "Neither do I," Beatrice admitted. "I suppose we will learn together." Catherine visited often, bringing baby clothes she knitted and advice neither of them had asked for, but both appreciated. She had left the Gardner household after one too many of Violet's petty cruelties, and now worked for a kinder family. "Your stepmother tried to forbid me from seeing you," she told Beatrice over tea. "I told her I was done taking orders from that house." "How is my father?" Beatrice asked, though she was not sure why she cared. "Drinking himself into an early grave, if you want the truth. The mine is struggling. Silver prices are not what they were, and your father never learned to save for hard times. Violet and Thomas are spending money as fast as they can, probably worried it will dry up." Catherine shook her head. "It is not your problem anymore, though." "No," Beatrice agreed, resting her hand on her growing belly. "It is not. Their son was born in February of 1883 during a blizzard that shut down most of Leadville for 3 days. Sam paced the small house while Catherine helped Beatrice through labor, looking like he might pass out from stress. When it was finally over and Catherine placed the squalling infant in his arms, Sam stared down at the tiny face with wonder. "He is perfect," Sam whispered. "What should we name him?" "William," Beatrice said immediately. It had been her mother's father's name, a link to family that had nothing to do with her father or his failures. "William Henry Nathaniel." "William," Sam repeated, testing it. "Billy, I like it." Fatherhood transformed Sam in subtle ways. He was more careful at work, less likely to take risks, determined to come home safe every night. He sang to William in the evenings, nonsense songs that made Beatrice smile. He changed diapers without complaining and walked the floor with a colicky baby at 2 in the morning while Beatrice got desperately needed sleep. "You are a natural," Beatrice told him, watching him rock their son to sleep one evening. "I am terrified every moment that I will do something wrong," Sam confessed. "But I love him so much it overwhelms everything else." "I know exactly what you mean." They settled into a rhythm as a family. Money was still tight, but they managed. Sam took on extra work when it was available. Beatrice sewed and mended, and sometimes sold the baked goods she made with the sourdough starter Catherine had given her. William grew fat and happy, oblivious to the poverty his mother had left behind. Beatrice's father showed up at their door one afternoon in the fall of 1883. She almost did not recognize him. He had aged terribly, his face gaunt, his hands shaking. "Beatrice, father." She did not invite him in immediately, standing in the doorway with William on her hip. "What do you want? To see you, to meet my grandson." Cornelius's eyes fixed on the baby. "May I come in?" She considered refusing but ultimately stepped aside. "Sam is at work. He will be home soon." Her father entered the modest house and looked around without comment on its simplicity. He sat heavily in the chair she indicated, and she noticed his clothes, while still expensive, were worn at the cuffs and collar. "He looks like you," he said, watching William. "He has Sam's eyes." "I have made mistakes, Beatrice." The admission came out rough, clearly difficult for him. "With you, with everything. I let Violet and Clara manipulate me. I chose money and status over my own daughter's happiness." "Yes, you did." Beatrice sat across from him, William in her lap. "Why are you telling me this now? Because I am dying." He said it flatly. "The doctor says my liver is failing. Too many years of drinking too much. I have maybe 6 months, probably less." Beatrice felt a complicated swirl of emotions. Grief for what could have been, anger for what was done, and a weary kind of sadness for the broken man in front of her. "I am sorry." "Are you?" He laughed bitterly. "I would not blame you for celebrating. You are still my father. I do not wish you dead." They sat in silence for a moment. William made a happy gurgling sound and grabbed at Beatrice's hair. Finally, her father spoke again. "The mine is failing. I made poor investments and silver prices have collapsed. There will not be much left after I am gone. Violet and Clara will get the house and what remains, but it will not keep them in the style they have grown accustomed to." "Again, why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that you won." He met her eyes. You lost everything and built something better from nothing. Violet has everything I could give her and is miserable. Thomas cheated to get what he wanted and ended up with a shrew. You were the strong one all along, like your mother. I was too stupid to see it. Beatrice felt tears prick her eyes. I did not want to win, Father. I just wanted to be loved. I know. I am sorry I failed at that. He stood slowly, like it pained him. May I hold him? Just once, she hesitated, then handed William over. Her father took the baby awkwardly, clearly unpracticed, and stared down at him with something like wonder. Hello, William. I am your grandfather, though I do not deserve the title. He held the baby for a long moment, then handed him back. Thank you for letting me meet him. Father. No, do not say anything kind. I do not deserve it. He moved toward the door. I have changed my will. You will get a portion of what is left, though it will not be much. I wanted you to know that I tried to make it right, even if it is too little, too late. He left before she could respond, and she watched from the window as he walked slowly down the street, a shadow of the powerful man he had once been. Sam found her still standing there when he came home, William asleep in her arms. What happened? Sam asked, reading her expression. She told him everything. He listened quietly, then pulled her into his arms, careful not to crush William between them. Are you all right? I think so. It is strange. I have wanted him to acknowledge what happened, to see that he was wrong. Now that he has, I do not feel the satisfaction I expected. I just feel sad. That is because you have a good heart. Sam kissed the top of her head. Anger is easier than grief. Her father died in December, just after Christmas. The funeral was small. Violet and Clara were there, both dressed in elaborate mourning clothes that Beatrice suspected were bought on credit. Thomas attended, standing awkwardly beside his wife. Beatrice and Sam came late and stood at the back, leaving early. She shed a few tears for the father he could have been, then went home to her real family and did not look back. The inheritance, when it finally came through, was modest by Cornelius Gardner's standards, but substantial for Beatrice and Sam. Enough to pay off the house, to save for William's future, to give them a cushion against hard times. Beatrice discovered that her father had also left her mother's jewelry, things Clara had been wearing for years under the assumption they would be hers eventually. Violet contested the will, but it was ironclad. For once, Cornelius had been thorough. What do you want to do with it? Sam asked, looking at the bank draft. Save most of it, Beatrice said. Maybe use some to expand your business. You have been talking about buying horses to train and sell, not just managing other people's stock. That is your money from your father. It is our money. We are married, remember. She took his hand. I want to invest in us, in our future. You have given me everything that matters. Let me do this. They bought land on the outskirts of Leadville and built a stable and corral. Sam had a gift for training horses, and word spread quickly. Within a year, people were coming from Denver and beyond to buy horses trained by Samuel Nathaniel. The business grew steadily, not making them wealthy but providing a comfortable living that did not require Sam to break his body working in the cold. Beatrice gave birth to twin daughters in the summer of 1885, red-faced and loud and perfect. They named them Rose and Ruby, and Sam was hopelessly outnumbered by females in his household from that point forward. He adapted with good humor, learning to braid hair and arbitrate toddler disputes with the same patience he used training horses. How did I end up here? He asked one evening, surrounded by children and chaos, though his smile made it clear he was not complaining. You stopped me from staring at a church and feeling sorry for myself, Beatrice reminded him. Everything else followed from there. Best decision I ever made. They occasionally saw Violet and Thomas around town. The rumors said Thomas's business had failed, and they had moved into a smaller house on the unfashionable side of Leadville. Violet had lost her looks to bitterness and complained to anyone who would listen about her reduced circumstances. Thomas worked as a clerk in an assayer's office, a position far beneath what he had once aspired to. Beatrice felt no schadenfreude, no pleasure in their decline. She simply felt grateful that she had escaped that life before it consumed her completely. When Violet approached her one day in the general store, Beatrice was civil but distant. "Your children are lovely," Violet said, watching Rose and Ruby examine fabric swatches with serious concentration. "William was outside with Sam, learning about horses. Thank you. You seem happy." "I am." Beatrice met her former sister's eyes and saw the jealousy there, the realization that Beatrice had somehow won despite losing everything. "I hope you find happiness as well, Violet. That is kind of you to say, considering everything." "I am not kind. I am just done carrying anger around." It was too heavy. Beatrice gathered her children and left, and that was the last real conversation she ever had with Violet. They crossed paths occasionally over the years, but they were strangers who happened to share some history. Nothing more. Sam's horse training business continued to thrive. By the early 1890s, they had expanded to breeding as well, and the Nathaniel name was respected throughout Colorado. William showed his father's talent with horses and started helping at the stables as soon as he was old enough. Rose and Ruby were more interested in other pursuits, but they helped with the business side, keeping records and managing accounts with a precision that delighted Beatrice. "They are smarter than both of us put together," Sam observed, watching his daughters calculate expenses and profits with ease. "That is the terrifying part," Beatrice agreed. In the summer of 1895, they built a new house on their land, bigger than the first but still modest by the standards of Leadville's wealthy families. It had room for all 3 children and a guest room and a real kitchen with a modern stove. Beatrice planted a garden and filled the house with things they chose together, furniture and books and small treasures that marked their shared life. "Remember our first house?" Sam asked as they lay in bed the first night in the new place. 2 rooms and a temperamental stove. "We were convinced we had everything we needed. We did. We had each other." He pulled her close. "We still do." William married at 21, bringing home a sweet girl named Margaret who loved horses almost as much as he did. Rose and Ruby showed no interest in marriage, instead opening a bookkeeping business that quickly became essential to half the businesses in Leadville. Sam's leg bothered him more as he aged, forcing him to cut back on the physical aspects of training, but William took over seamlessly. Beatrice watched her family grow and thrive, and sometimes marveled at how close she had come to missing all of it. If she had married Thomas, she would have been trapped in a life of appearances and emptiness. The illness that had seemed like a tragedy had actually been a salvation, forcing a situation that revealed everyone's true nature. "You ever think about what would have happened if I had never gotten sick?" she asked Sam one evening as they sat on their porch, watching the sun set behind the mountains. "No," Sam said simply. "I only think about how grateful I am that I saw you that day outside the church, that you let me buy you stew, that you gave me a chance even though I had nothing to offer but honesty. You had everything to offer, you just did not realize it. We were both learning." He took her hand, his grip still strong despite his years. No regrets, not a single one. They grew old together in the house they built, surrounded by children and grandchildren, and the horses Sam never stopped loving. William took over the business completely, expanding it further with bloodlines imported from Kentucky and California. Rose and Ruby never married but lived together in a house in town, happily independent and successful in their own right. Sam's leg got worse, eventually requiring a cane, but he still went out to the stables every day to oversee training and offer advice. Beatrice's hair went silver, and laugh lines creased her face. She kept sewing and gardening and managing the household accounts with Rose and Ruby's guidance. She baked bread every week and spoiled her grandchildren and sat with Sam on the porch every evening no matter the weather. Thomas Whitmore died in 1902 of a heart attack, still working as a clerk. Violet attended the funeral in clothes that had seen too many mendings. She looked old and defeated, and Beatrice felt genuine sympathy for her. After the service, Beatrice approached her. "I am sorry for your loss," Beatrice said. Violet studied her, taking in the quality of her clothes, the confidence in her bearing. "You won everything. I won a good life because I found a good man. That is all." Beatrice hesitated, then added, "It is not too late for you to find some happiness, Violet." "It is. I am 53 years old, alone and broke. Thomas left nothing but debts." Violet's laugh was bitter. "I thought I was being so clever, taking him from you. I thought I was securing my future. Instead, I destroyed any chance I had at real happiness. I cannot fix that for you, but I can offer you a position if you want it. We need help managing the house and the household accounts. It pays fairly, and there is a small cottage on the property you could live in." Violet stared at her in shock. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because holding grudges is exhausting, and we are all too old for it. Because you are the only family I have left from when I was young, even if we were never really sisters. Because my husband taught me that forgiveness is lighter than anger." Beatrice touched Violet's arm briefly. "Think about it. The offer stands." Violet never took her up on it, too proud even in poverty to accept help from the sister she had betrayed. She moved away from Leadville not long after, and Beatrice heard she went to live with a cousin in Kansas City. They never spoke again, but Beatrice was glad she had made the offer. It closed something that had been open for too long. Sam's health began to fail in 1908. His heart was weakening, the doctor said, worn out by years of hard work and high altitude. He was 72 and had lived a full life, but that did not make the slow decline any easier to watch. Beatrice rarely left his side during those last months, holding his hand and reminding him of all the good years they had shared. "I am not afraid," Sam told her one afternoon in early spring. "I have no regrets. I got to love you for nearly 30 years. I got to raise good children and build something lasting. That is more than most men get." "I am not ready to lose you," Beatrice whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I know, love, but you are strong. You survived everything they did to you and came out better. You will survive this too." He reached up with trembling fingers to wipe her tears. "Promise me you will not stop living just because I am gone. Promise me you will keep finding joy." "I promise." Sam Nathaniel died on April 12, 1808, with his wife holding his hand and his children gathered around. He was buried on a hill overlooking the stables and corrals, with a simple headstone that read, "Honest, kind, loved." The funeral drew hundreds of people whose lives he had touched through his work, his integrity, and his quiet goodness. Beatrice grieved deeply but not hopelessly. She had Sam's memories and their children and the life they had built together. She continued managing the household and helping William with the business. She watched her grandchildren grow and eventually saw great-grandchildren born. She lived in the house Sam had built for her and tended the garden they had planted together, and found that joy was still possible, even laced with loss. She died quietly in her sleep in the summer of 1919, at the age of 81, surrounded by family in the home she loved. In her final years, she had often told the story of how she met Sam, how he had seen her at her lowest point and offered her not pity but partnership, Not rescue, but respect. She told her granddaughters especially to never settle for less than they deserved, to choose honest love over social status, to build their own happiness rather than wait for someone to give it to them. William buried her next to Sam on the hill, and their graves looked out over the land they had cultivated and the legacy they had created. The horse training business continued for 3 more generations, always bearing the Nathaniel name, and always maintaining the standards of integrity and excellence that Sam had established. The house where Thomas and Violet had lived eventually collapsed into ruin, forgotten by all except historians who researched Leadville's glory days. But the Nathaniel home stood strong, expanded and updated by successive generations but never abandoned, a testament to the power of choosing wisely, of valuing substance over appearance, of building on foundations of trust and genuine affection. In the end, Beatrice's story was not about betrayal or revenge, but about resilience and redemption. It was about discovering that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. It was about a cowboy who saw worth in a woman others had discarded, and a woman who found the courage to build a new life from the ashes of her old one. And it was about love, the real kind that grows slowly and roots deeply, that survives hardship and grows stronger through challenge, that creates something lasting and true. The kind of love that starts with simple kindness and stew in a cafe, and becomes a lifetime of shared purpose and mutual devotion. The kind of love that heals old wounds and builds new dreams and proves that happy endings are not just possible but inevitable when 2 people choose each other every single day, in every moment that matters, until the very end.